Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Chamber's legislative update this morning. A great Saturday morning to join us. So to kick this off, as we always do, we're going to turn it over to our advocacy chair, Rod Kegel.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody this morning. I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. We're ready to jump right into this thing. Senator Castleton, are you on?
Yes, I am, Rod. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. You got that planter in the background. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, sitting in a pickup. It's hard to find a good quiet spot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Give us an update on what's going on in the Senate.
Okay. All right. So, and I know there's several members here, and so I guess if you get the opportunity to go first, you get to talk about several of them, and I'm going to try to just hit on a few to save room for others to be able to talk. So, it's been an unusual session, but a very productive session, given the circumstances. And so I've got a list here in front of me of just a few things that I was trying to think of this morning that I know is important to Owensboro and the Chamber and surrounding communities that thrive here in our local economy. And, Senate Bill 5, I was one of the co-sponsors of it, the COVID liability reform bill, basically to give our business system coverage. We remember back almost a year. Oh, it was over a year ago. It's hard to believe that we've been under this for almost a year. But if we look at our local businesses and the choices and the decisions they were forced to make on the fly to keep them open, to be able to service their customers and supply the goods and needs that our community needed, we owe our essential workers a great deal of gratitude. And so this particular bill here is to give them some coverage when they were making decisions as executive orders and mandates and guidelines were coming down. And so we thought it was important to make sure that because they stuck up for us and stayed open and took a huge risk for us, that we give them some protection and liability reform there. It's passed out of the Senate. I know it's currently being worked on by some members in the House, and hopefully we can see that bill here before the end of the session. I carried Senate Bill 1 to try to bring a co-equal approach to our government during state of emergencies. We've seen out of the House, thanks to Petrie and Representative Reed, and I know several members, Suzanne, and several of us have worked really, really hard on the broadband for rural Kentucky, and I'll let some of the House members talk more about that. But that's in the Senate now, and I'm hoping that on our end that we can push to keep it the way the House passed it and get it out so that our citizens that are in rural Kentucky without much high-speed internet, and I'd say most of us on this call are probably dealing with some of that this morning. For our agriculture industry, we passed a bill, Representative Heath's bill, I think. I think he was just a sponsor or help sponsor, but we added poultry and equine to the definition of livestock. We remember what happened to O'Brien Farms years ago, and so we thought it was important to try to make sure that the poultry and equine industry, the livestock definition was kind of vague, and so we want to make sure that they had the protection there on their farm as well as an operator and as someone who cares and takes care of the animals for our production. So those are a few of the bills that I think really affect our community. We're going to see, hopefully, in the budget come out Monday. We have an A&R meeting at 9 a.m. And I think there's going to be some really good things. We got increased funding for unemployment employees, some money for the Work Ready Scholarship programs. And then, we passed also out of the Senate, House Bill 278, the PPP conformity bill, and it has an emergency clause on it to hopefully bring some relief for our small businesses on the state side of knowing how to handle the tax situation there. So that's kind of a 10,000 foot, and I'll let the other members take it from there.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are you going to be around if they have some questions later, or do you need to go?
No, I'll be around. I'm going to mute my phone here.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Looks like Majority Caucus Leader Miles, are you on here this morning?
I am.
How about good morning? Nice to see you.
Nice
You're
to
in
see
a little better
everybody.
environment than Matt and I are. That's good. That's good. What about an update on the budget, Suzanne?
Well, obviously we've been hard at it this past week, especially. We've had the public meetings. I believe it was Monday and Tuesday. We did go ahead and sign off on the legislative budget, but of course, it's in free conference on the budget for the executive branch and also the judicial branch. So those are two of the items that we've spent a tremendous amount of time on. The budget as a whole, we did a 1-year budget last year due to COVID. And so we went ahead and did, for the most part, a continuation budget. I think, I'm trying to think the exact phrase that's been used with very few I was trying to think exactly the word that Chairman Petrie's been using. He's got a phrase that he uses as far as his modifications that we're using on this budget. This past week, obviously, we found out some of the money that'll be coming to the state of Kentucky from the federal side with this last package that's passed. We really don't know what the rules are going to be with that. We're getting bits and pieces of information. We did have a briefing from John Hicks, which is the budget person for the governor. So he kind of walked through some of the items and obviously broadband will be something that we're hopeful that money can go towards. As far as the House goes, on the broadband, a lot of the items that we've been kind of trying to walk through and think through is really concerned about the last mile. We hear about kind of the structure and things like that, but we recognize, I think we all recognize, there are some areas that is just not financially feasible for the end result to come from private companies and things like that. And there will need to be some help on the government side to make sure that we provide that access. I think we found that out through telework, telehealth, teleeducation, everything this last time. So I think that's one of the main focuses. Financially, I would say that I think we were in better shape than we thought we would be at this point in time. Of course, the road fund is something that continues. The gas tax is still a topic of conversation right now. We do have 4 days left, technically, to get some things done, and all the members with me this morning recognize a lot of things that will take place these last 4 days will be really important. We've had a few vetoes that we've overridden that we've sent to the governor that he vetoed. So a lot of it is just the concerns of making sure that we give everyone the opportunity to get back to work. I think I could imagine that the chamber members are anxious to, everyone's anxious to get back to work and in a safe environment. We don't want anyone to not be safe or healthy, but we want to make sure that everyone gets back to work and we get our economy going is one of the most important things. Yesterday we were in, I believe, timing, I had impeachment in the middle. We recessed and we had an impeachment committee in between there. So all the impeachments are off the table now. All the documents have been submitted. So there have not been any impeachments that were moved forward sent to the Senate at this point in time. So all of that is completed. The impeachments, the way that they work, if you do not complete before the House adjourns, then that automatically dies. But we've gone ahead and done the due process on everything that was submitted to us, and we've turned that in. So we're in good shape on that. The expense, this is probably the first time that that I'm aware of, have followed the law. If the impeachments have been filed, if they do not go forward, the petitioners actually are going to have to pay the bill for that, for the expenses incurred. And I do think that's fair. I think it's only fair if you're going to make accusations of our top elected officials, that you need to be held accountable for that and be responsible for that. So that's one of the other items that I've been spending a tremendous amount of time on, is the impeachments and also the budget. So, of course, the family court bill, DJ, I'm sure we'll talk about that. Representative Gooch has had multiple bills this time. A lot of his have focused naturally on energy, and I'm always happy to support him in those causes because I think we can all agree that that is very, very important. And I know Representative Lewis has been really active with Chairman Massey on some of the education issues, and the TRS bill is in the Senate right now. I think it'll be heard on Monday morning. It's on the agenda, so kind of anxious to hear how that comes out. I think the Senate Senate likes to put their fingerprints on everything we send them, and we honestly like to try to put our fingerprints on things they send us. So we'll see how that works out. But I will say Representative Dixon could not join us this morning. He had a family obligation this morning, but he's been a phenomenal new member. He's been quite an addition, and we truly appreciate everything that he's done so far. He was elected to I'm trying to think, the aeronautical, someone else may be able to, we've got a new caucus that is very directed with all the
Aviation Caucus.
space aviation and everything like that. So he's the co-chair of that, the member from the House in charge of that. So really anxious to see where that goes. So I will go ahead and turn it over to the rest, and we'll get to questions.
Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate that. Representative Gooch, I saw you on here a while ago.
Thank you, Rod. It's good to see you. I'm
Yes, sir.
glad to be here today. As you know, we started this short session, and when you have a short session, we know that we're going to be very limited as to what we can really actually get done, because there's really not the time. And then you compact that with the fact that we had to do the second year of the budget. That just really made it a lot tougher. And the budget, as Representative Miles, Leader Miles talked about, Chair Miles, we're working on that. Hasn't been done yet. We really only have 2 days to get that done, to maintain our right to override anything. Kentucky, the governor does have line item veto power in the budget, so we want to make sure that we have we do it in a time where we can override anything that we don't agree with. And so that's still ongoing. A couple of other things that we did that were important. I had a bill early on as one of a group that really felt like that the governor has he has the power to declare a state of emergency. He has certain powers that go along with that, but that was never intended to just be indefinite, year long or however. And so we actually passed the bills to rein that power in. Unfortunately, the courts haven't been a fair, willing arbitrator in that. And so we still have some issues that we're working with that on the court side now. But ultimately, I think that we, I don't see how the courts can rule. The legislature doesn't have the right to make laws, and it's up to us and not them to do that. So that's still kind of ongoing. Of course, it's already mentioned, broadband was a big issue we saw during the pandemic. I had people in my district that when their kids were trying to do the virtual school, some maybe had to go to maybe like a McDonald's parking lot or something to be able to get internet. And so we've really seen, and with people working from home, how very, very important that is to every citizen out there pretty much. So we're trying to work to make sure that we do get high-speed internet and broadband to all of our citizens at any place in Kentucky. It's very important. It's not okay just to have it in some areas. Everyone has the right to that utility. And so that's something that we were doing. Another thing, we wanted to make sure that under the PPE money that we got, that we were able to kind of mirror what the federal was doing with that as far as taxation, and be able to expense that money, deductions on your income taxes. And I think we've actually gotten that done. And certainly we did it in the House. And then the other thing, of course, as Representative Miles said, energy is always kind of my focus. I did do a bill called the All Fuels Bill that I think is very important. And what that does is it just says that locals, or no one really, can limit the consumers of Kentucky's ability to have all types of energy out there. And we were seeing in other states where some local zoning were saying, okay, any house that is built here has to be all electric, or it can't have natural gas heat or natural gas hot water or some other, or propane or some other type of fuel. And we know in Kentucky that it's going to take all forms of energy to be able to meet our needs. And when people do that, it not only just affects that area where they make those particular rules or whatever, but it can affect the overall reliability and affordability of the entire grid. So it's affecting everyone. And we just saw what happened in Texas, that maintaining the grid and the affordability of cheap electricity is very, very important. And that bill has passed the Senate. I expect us to concur. It was House Bill 207. I expect us to concur with that, with the Senate changes hopefully Monday. And so that bill has passed. Along the energy front, there's some other things that we are looking at, but ultimately the goal is to make sure that Kentucky can choose for ourselves the types of things that we produce our energy from. We know that we're going to have, as I said earlier, the all the above approach, but it's very important that Washington understand that a one size fits all doesn't work for every state, and every state has different things available to them. And so I'm hoping that we can do that. But let me mention one other thing, then I'll be done. There's a couple of bills that a Senate Bill 255 just passed yesterday. There's a House bill in the Senate. This is something that has really been mind-blowing to me. It has to do with cryptocurrency mining. And I heard about that when there was a business in, I think in Calvert City, in that area, the Paducah area, where they were actually mining cryptocurrency. And they moved into a site that was formerly a steel mill. And this process takes so much electricity and so much energy that they were actually using more energy to do this mining than the people were when they were making the steel. And so this could be something that will really benefit Kentucky, because we have a lower cost utility rates, or we have had. And so that's something that we're really trying to promote Kentucky as a leader in cryptocurrency mining because of our cheap electricity. So with that, I'll let my colleagues talk about what they are interested in.
Thank you, Representative Gooch. Appreciate you being here with us today. Representative Johnson, I know you got a lot to talk about this morning.
Well, thanks for having us this morning. It's actually good to get a chance to talk to the people back home in a little bit more direct fashion. We get down in Frankfort and we get so wrapped up in what we're doing, sometimes we don't get to hear from people. So this is good. I appreciate that. I'll try to be pretty quick. I'll just throw out first one bill that's not earth-shattering, but it's important to Owensboro and Davis County. That was a bill that I passed for the process of identifying or opening the opportunities for OMU board members. And basically what it was is that the current law says that every single board member on the OMU board has to be a resident inside the city limits of Owensboro. And the truth is, our county and our city have blended in many ways. I guess an example I would use is if you lived on one side of Tamarack Road, you could be on the board, but if you lived on the other side of Tamarack Road, you couldn't be on the board because you lived in the county. So what this bill does is it maintains a majority of the members of the board have to live within the city, but a minority of the members, in this case, we have 5 members, so 2 of the members could live in the Davis County area, be part of the OMU service area, but not necessarily have to live in the city limits. And that simply gives a little more authority to our mayor and individuals across the state who pick these board members, gives them some latitude, gives local rule a little bit more. So I'm glad I got that done. It wasn't, again, not earth-shattering, but for Owensboro, it was important to get that done. So we got that bill passed. And then it's kind of interesting, when you come in and you start working with bills, what I have found is that you open doors to worlds you never knew about. And there always seems to be a steep learning curve about worlds that you didn't have anything to do with before. This session, for me, the 2 worlds that have opened up is outdoor advertising with billboards and judicial assignments. 2 worlds I didn't have anything to do with before the session started. And now I've no more than I ever wanted to, I think. So I'll touch on those real quick. We actually have a situation in Kentucky where our regulations and laws governing billboards on our highways was found unconstitutional by the federal government. We needed to fix that, so I sponsored House Bill 328, which is in the process of reestablishing our authority in a constitutional way so that our transportation cabinet can actually have some regulatory authority over billboards. Otherwise, all we're ever going to see on our highways is billboards. We'll never see a tree again. And that's in the process. It's gone through the House. It's over in the Senate. They're massaging it a little bit. They'll send it back to us. Hopefully we can concur with whatever they come up with. And it doesn't seem like a big deal until you're trying to drive down the highway and you can't see anything but billboards. So we think we're going to get that across the finish line. And then the other world I've become involved with is judicial districting. This is something we've talked about. We have a need for 2 permanent family court judges in Davis County. We have 1 permanent one. We have one that's been temporarily assigned for 3 years. Chief Justice Minton helped us out by temporarily assigning a district judge from the 38th district to Davis County. And that's why we currently have 2 family court judges, but that's a temporary solution. We need a permanent one. And House Bill 327 addresses that. It meets all the requirements for certification from the courts. And I've gotten it through the House. It's over in the Senate, and they're adding their touches to it. And Senator Castle might want to talk to that a little bit, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, and we're looking for the right way to do that. And so I'm in constant conversations with the Senate. We hope to get that across the finish line, because regardless of how we get there, that 2nd family court judge in Davis County is absolutely critical. I won't go into all the details, but when you know that a judge is working from 8 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night hearing cases, and then Saturdays are one chance to figure out what she's doing the next week, we've got a problem, and this is going to solve that. So those are the big issues, and I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I think we've pretty much covered most of the other issues I would have talked about. Will add one more thing. This rural internet, this last mile, House Bill 320, where we put $250 million into what hopefully will be seen in the budget, is critical. It's a big deal. It's one of these opportunities where we have a one-time influx of funds coming in from the federal government, and we have a one-time need that we can address, and that's this last mile rural internet capability. It is huge, and I don't think it's getting enough conversation at this point, but it's going to change Kentucky when we get that done. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Thank you for those comments. Thank you for what you're doing up there. We appreciate it. Representative Lewis, good to see you on here this morning. Bring us up to speed on what you've been doing.
Well, there's advantages and disadvantages by being last, I guess, because there's not a whole lot left to talk about, but there is one huge issue, and I've not heard anybody mention it, and that is our unemployment for the people that we represent. And, you know, I get calls every day, just like the rest of you all do. And, you know, I've got people calling me that still don't have their unemployment from a year ago when this started. We were working on a bill in the House to basically make the governor open regional centers where these people can go, and call centers, so that these people will have somebody to talk to. That's the biggest complaint I've heard. You know, they call, and they're in the queue. Somebody will call them back. Nobody ever calls them back. And it's been very frustrating for all of us. You know, usually when somebody calls us, we can find a way to help them or point them in the right direction. And in this situation, we've not been able to get them a lot of help. And that's been the most frustrating thing to me as a legislator, since, you know, this is my 3rd year, and I believe it has been the most frustrating thing overall. But we were working on that bill, and I think we passed that bill out of the House. And then all of a sudden, you know, I think the governor looks and sees what we're doing. Now he's decided he is going to open regional centers next month, and a call center or something. So hopefully that will provide some relief to our people. But, you know, we've got people coming out of this pandemic that have lost their homes, their cars, and, you know, a lot of other things. And so it's important that we try our best to help those. The other thing we were working on, and someone else may be able to update us, I think it was in language in one of the bills, was about unemployment rates for small businesses and businesses coming out of this pandemic. You know, obviously those rates are going to be up, and I think we've got something to provide relief there. Several of you mentioned about the broadband. That is huge. that may be one of the biggest things we do this session. I think I know it is here in Ohio County and East Davis County that I represent too, and all of Davis County and throughout the state. So that's huge for our businesses, our people, our kids, and everybody. I had a bill. I filed a bill back when all this started, House Bill 331, and I've been in education over 30 years, 34 I think, but we had some school districts and superintendents that their counties weren't in red and wanting to stay open, and they're on a conference call with the governor and maybe the commissioner or whatever, and they were basically told, well, no, you don't have to close, but if you don't, there'll be consequences. And, it should be about local control or whatever. The bill I filed basically says that the commissioner or state board can't remove locally elected school board members without due process. And it basically makes them go through the attorney general like all other elected officials. But the whole time I've been in education, I didn't know that they could be removed so subjectively. Without much cause. So, that bill's in the Senate. I don't know if it'll be heard or not. I think it would be a good bill, but that's basically the only bill. I co-sponsored, I think, DJ's bill for the OMU on the board members. And just for the record, I did have to vote against the court judge in Davis County. Not that I don't think there does need to be another court judge in Davis County, but my Ohio County judges were wearing me out on that bill because that's where that judge is going to come from. So I hope everyone understands that. And I hope Davis County does get another court judge because they need it. But basically, that's all I have. I think everyone else has pretty much summed it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lewis. I'm sorry, I had my mic muted. Appreciate you being with us. Appreciate what you're doing for people in Eastern Davis County and Ohio County and all of us, really. Matt, DJ kind of threw 327 to you. Do you want to reply to what's happening to 327 in the Senate?
Let's see if I can get my mic to mute. Okay. So, just like Suzanne kind of alluded to, the beauty of separations of the independent branches of government. Sometimes what is favorable in one particular branch isn't in another, and Representative Lewis kind of alluded to that. There's been some great discussion going on for almost 2 months now about the 38th district not being on board with coming to the 6th. There's been several different ideals tossed around, some agreements in place and not in place, and so at this time, I have filed an amendment to House Bill 327. Currently, it is sitting in the orders of the day. I filed a floor amendment to add a new family court judge without moving Hancock County into the 6th. And so we'll see what happens to the amendment, and then it'll go back to the House if passed out of the Senate, if the other senators go along. And, one thing too, and DJ knows this, it come over kind of as a clean bill, just dealing with Davis in the 6th and the 38th. And it's been amended now and deals with several other districts across the state of Kentucky, which now brings in several more House members and several more senators now that are affected by this bill. And so it'll be interesting to see what happened to it now because of that.
Sorry about that. I learned to work my mic here too, Matt. So you're saying it might be in trouble because of the broadness that it's developed through these amendments? It's,
I think the conversation definitely will start to be had, because if we do pass it out of the Senate with the committee sub that was put on it by the chairman, dealing with Scott County, Laurel County, and other ones, it'll go back to the House. And so just like anything, when you get down to the last few days and changes start taking place, there's always that risk. And so, as an individual who knows our family court judge well and has an understanding of the importance of having a second family court judge so that the most vulnerable of our population can have access to the courts, I'm trying to bring a good compromise between the 6th and the 38th and still accomplish the goals we need here in Davis.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions following up on 327?
Rod, I'll
All
just
right,
add a real quick comment if I
DJ.
could about that. And you brought up a good point with the committee substitute that was added onto it. And with any bill, and I found this about the billboard bill too, but anytime you add anything to it, it makes it more problematic to get it across the finish line. And we've kind of run into that with the judicial bill 327 as well. And it's when you do something like this, it's not a local issue only, it's a statewide issue. So anything that involves a judicial change at one location gets the attention of everybody across the state. And that's what we're running into with this committee substitute. There's just different philosophies about how we get to the finish line on judicial redistricting. Some say that we need to do it as one bill statewide, get it done. And that becomes what we've gone through here times, I don't know how many districts it is, but it probably would be 20 districts impacted. So you think about what we've had to do to get this one bill through, multiply that times 20, and that's what comprehensive judicial redistricting looks like. My personal opinion is I think we need to get done what we can get done each and every session. This would be a great start, but we'll see whether or not we'll see which philosophy actually wins out on this bill in the end. But it, again, one way or another, we've got to figure out how to get that second family court judgeship made permanent. And that's my, if not only goal, primary goal for this. So keep an eye. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Matt, who you say the chairman added that amendment?
It was a committee sub by the chairman, Whitney Westerfield, that was dealing with some of the other counties, and then the floor amendment for just adding a family court judge to Davis County was my amendment.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Matt. All right. We've got about 2 or 3 questions that were sent in. The first one is, there's been a great deal of discussion about the need to focus attention on the Commonwealth's transportation network of roads and bridges. Will this session include increases in the gas tax?
You want me to
Matt,
take that one first?
Yeah,
I'll
go
take
ahead, Suzanne.
There is still conversations that are being taken place. There is a bill out there that increases the gas tax, but it also has, it's a more comprehensive bill than just that. It does include electric vehicles with that. As of right now, you know, the electric vehicles are using the roads, but they're not participating in paying for them. So that's part of the conversation. It also has adjustments in the fees. Apparently the fees have not changed in many, many years. And quite frankly, I mean, it's one of those situations where we are going to get to the point where, you know, we talk about it often of consumption-based tax and things like that. Well, to me, I see this also as a user fee, the possibility of a user fee. So if we want our, you know, if we want the 69 bridge to move forward, if we want our roads repaired, you know, obviously we've been really fortunate in this area. You know, we were able to upgrade the William Natcher, now Expressway, to get it interstate access. We'd like to get the Audubon done too. Economically, that really does affect our area to give better access as far as that goes. But even, you know, we haven't seen it as much in this area, but I will tell you the pictures from East Kentucky are just devastating of after the flooding, the roads that were just completely washed out or completely moved. They've got bridges, especially swinging bridges, that just don't exist anymore. So we've got people in East Kentucky, especially, just completely trapped from many directions. So, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll get more funding into the road fund. Those are obviously 2 different pots of money. Whenever we talk about the budget and the road budget are 2 separate budgets, but just kind of stay tuned. We're really trying to focus in on more funding in the road fund actually going to infrastructure. So just kind of stay tuned on that and see where that ends up. But we've really kind of focused in on that and trying to see what we can do with the road funding. But it's in my opinion, it's one of the most important issues we have. Of course, education is, and transportation and public safety. Those are probably my top 3. And I think all those do affect the business all the time. Matter.
And that has to originate in the House, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on the road tax?
Yeah, I'll throw something out real quick. And here's the way I look at this. First off, tax, in my opinion, is a 4-letter word. I don't like it, but let's look, when we have electricity in our house, what do we do to get the electricity? We pay our electric bill. We're going to have water come to our house. What do we do to get water? We pay our water bill. If we're going to have roads, we have to pay the road bill. And I'm in no way enjoying any concept about any kind of a tax raise, even if it's a road tax. But just like our electricity, just like our water, it's an infrastructure issue. And if we're going to have good roads, we have to find the funding to do that. It's not a pleasant conversation, but it's a conversation we must have.
Yeah,
Thank you,
can I
DJ.
weigh in on that?
Yes, sir.
Let me say that I know a lot of my colleagues look at it as a really a tough vote. I don't see it that way as much, and here's why. When you do increase the gas tax, a lot of people that drive through the state from out of state are paying the tax as well. But if you look at what's happened in the last few years, we've already dropped 6 cents with the way we used to be taxed, and when you consider what we've lost with hundreds of millions from the toll credits, and then what we're losing on that as well, we are way down as far as our revenue. And one of the things is we look at this. I know nobody likes doing it, but when you look at the cost that the average family would probably incur, it could be $100, it could be $150 or whatever. But when you have roads that are really in disrepair and really bad, or like bridges that have been washed out in East Kentucky where people have to go way around some, maybe 100 miles to get to work or whatever, or you hit a pothole and you knock your front end out of line, or even I've seen people burst tires and bend rims. It probably costs you a lot more wear and tear and damage to your vehicle driving on bad roads than what you will actually pay increase on that. So I do believe that I understand that during a pandemic people say, well, it's not a good time to raise it, but I think when you look at what's happening nationally, now it probably is the time to do it, because it's gas prices, they're going up. I saw coming home yesterday, I saw gas at $2.79 somewhere, and probably before the election it was probably $1.79. And there's no question that the policies coming out of the new administration really not caring about energy independence and shutting down gas production and gas transmission of energy fuel sources like that. Gas prices are really, really going to go up because of the policies coming out of the White House. And that's unfortunate, but I would not be at all surprised to see $3 a gallon gas by maybe even more, or certainly by Labor Day, and next year way more than that. So it's really tough. It'll be way more difficult to do anything a year from now than it is this year.
Thank you, Representative Gooch. Any other comments? The next question says, begins with a big thank you for your support of HB 320, which allocates money for the last mile broadband. And the question goes, if you would address the narrative circulating that the pole attachment agreements between pole owners and attachers is the reason for our state remaining underserved in the broadband connectivity. Would you address those?
Well, let me say, of course, as someone who served as a mayor, actually looked at maybe building our own cable system at that time. I was in Providence. We actually owned about half the utility poles, and the phone company owned the other half. But what happens is there have to be certain distances maintained between the electric lines and maybe phone lines and other lines like cable or whatever, and broadband or whatever. And if someone is building a system, then they have to pay not only, if there's not enough height on the pole, then they've got to pay to replace the pole and then put everybody else back on that. And that probably is an issue. I don't know that that's certainly something we're not going to address this session, but I have experienced that issue we weren't able to, that was one of the issues that kept us from trying to build our own cable service when I was mayor 35 years ago. So I'm aware of the issue and I have, experienced it, but it's going to be very difficult to change that.
I'll go ahead and comment on that one too. The way that the bill has left the House was just the broadband money. The potential amendment could be something to do with the pole attachment. I will tell you, we've got friends on both sides that are involved with the chamber and everything else as far as that goes. And my stance has been on it from day one. First of all, I mean, I'm just going to kind of, and I don't intentionally, I will in a way, but as far as the AT&T, Spectrums, Charters, whoever they may be, we still have people that don't have internet. We still have people that don't have broadband. So, I mean, if they were going to do it, then why are we not there yet, first of all? But with that being, I understand their argument on it, but the flip side to it, I personally have no preference who's going to be providing affordable, reliable internet, broadband for all of our people. So at the end of the day, however we get there is how I would like for us to get there. I do know that the PSC, that is before the PSC right now, to try to mend that bridge, fix that gap, whatever it may be. I understand both sides. I really do. But at the end of the day, I would prefer, kind of like going back to DJ, whenever we send a bill over, the cleaner it can come back, the quicker we can get that done. And the more things that it picks up makes it harder. Sometimes they make it better, but a lot of times it does make it harder to get there. So I truly think that if we can, however it happens, however we get it, to make sure that we get that last mile to everyone as quickly as possible is the best thing that we could do for our economy.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other comments on the poll sharing?
I won't talk so much on the poll sharing as because the bill is in the Senate now, and it's no secret that I have been working the hallways before it ever even passed the House to try to get this done. Myself and Senator Mills and several representatives in our area have worked closely with Kenergy and other ones to try to get this done. And being somebody from the private sector, I support the private sector before I ever support government or any type of business being in there. But there becomes a time, just like Representative Miles said, that the necessity for broadband internet right now, as we see this morning, we're on a Zoom call right now doing things electronically. Our kids have been in school and have to go places. I live in the Owensboro zip code and had to get 2 iPads with a Verizon account because we don't have access to high-speed internet fiber at our house. And so this is a solution for that last mile in the rural areas. Our urban areas right now, most of them have high speed, but this gets it where we can take it into the head of a holler or across those cornfields 1 mile to a single house. And this is a solution that we're trying to do to get that done. I am advocating every day. The chairman of appropriations sits right in front of me, and he knows about every hour and a half I'm going to ask him a question about House Bill 320. And so hopefully here next week we can get it across the finish line and reserve our right for a veto override.
Thank you, Matt. Any other comments? Sounding more and more like the boy from Yellow Creek. All right. We've got another question. What legislation has been passed or will be passed related to election reform? Anybody want to comment on that?
Okay, I'll tackle that a little bit. We did pass a pretty good bill out of the House. There was several people working on it, and I think what it really does is that it realizes that Kentucky, no matter what you thought of the last election, most people think Kentucky's election was fair, and it was fair because you had to request an absentee ballot. You had to show that you were who you said you are, and so I think that we didn't have the fraud that we saw in other states, and I do not believe that the national election in 2020 was fair at all. Matter of fact, I don't even think the results of the election were really accurate. But I think we also saw that a lot of Kentuckians liked being able to have a few days extra to go to the polls and vote. They like being able to maybe get an absentee ballot or whatever. And so what this bill really does is it allows for like 3 days, I think, the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before the election, for people to go into Central Station and actually vote. So they have more choices than just election day. Having to be able to request an absentee ballot and prove that you are who you are is not the same as people sending out absentee ballots to everyone, as you've seen in other states. So I think what we're doing is we're looking at Kentucky, trying to take some of the things that people liked from the last election and incorporating those in a way that does not affect the integrity of our election. So I think we passed a pretty good bill out of the House. I think it's in the Senate now.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments? Candace, do you have anything else?
With regard to that, Secretary Adams, Michael Adams, his chief of staff and us, we've been working a little bit on that, and we will be communicating with our members his proposed changes. We've got a great relationship with him. If I could just say how proud we've been of him and his job that he's done over the past year. He's made Kentucky look great, and he always makes sure to reach out to us. I know he's a Paducah boy, and his connection with us in West Kentucky has been admirable, and we appreciate all that he's done. The same with Quarles, with the broadband. We've got some people that are in key positions around the state that we're really blessed to be able to have that relationship with. So both of those are incredibly important.
Thank you, Candace. Well, we've just about taken an hour, not quite, but I want to thank you, especially you legislators, taking time to meet with us and keeping us informed. And thank you for all you do up there. And keep the faith. Keep going. Keep taking care of us. We appreciate it. Anybody
Thank
have any
you all.
closing comment?
Thank you so much for having us today. Hopefully a couple weeks later, we'll have more news for you. But when that budget rolls out, I think overall, so far, I've been extremely pleased with it and anxious to see what we're going to be able to do with this federal money. So hopefully we'll be able to really do some good advancements.
And to add what Suzanne is saying there, just for a second, we were just kind of briefed last night on some of the amounts coming down, and we were told it was going to be somewhere in the pluses of the billions, and so it's going to be interesting to see. Suzanne, what's it, about 60 days is when we think that influx of money will come into Kentucky, and then we're advocating to be able to have a seat at the table how it's spent. Would you say it's an accurate message?
I'd say it's accurate of it's starting to come. And quite honestly, that's been a little bit of the concern. We're making decisions on a budget right now the same way we were a year ago with the uncertainty. We do have, and I believe it was Monday, whenever we actually had information from John Hicks of some of the funding coming in. And we had gotten from our federal delegation some information too of some of the different things that it would be spent on, water and sewer infrastructure projects, some different things that we really are still in a situation right now. We are basing a budget right now on what we do know rather than what we don't know. So obviously, I think it's safe to say we will be advocating with the governor to think about that and encourage him to ask us to help and participate in that conversation. Obviously, the revenue and budget measures always start in the House. And we do think that we could be very helpful in making those decisions moving forward. And the last year, probably the communication with the governor has been the most frustrating for all of us as far as the unemployment and the guidance and guidelines and, healthy at work, healthy at home, healthy everything. We have not been able to participate, and that's been solely based upon him not allowing us to do that. We are, again, advocating the same way we did a year ago to include us in those conversations. And so just kind of keep in mind, that is where we are right now. There is a tremendous amount of money that's getting ready to come into our state. We do want to use it wisely, and make sure that we make good choices. So, you know, Senator Mills or Senator Caslin is his on spot. It's really, really important. Yesterday, I don't know if anyone saw the debate, but we got, there's a House Joint Resolution 77 out there, and it was really kind of the mindset of, you know, why do you think that we ought to be participating? Well, every single one of us on the screen has many people we have to answer to as elected officials, and we think 138 voices represent their people would be more helpful than one person making all the decisions. So we will be asking for that help.
Rod, if I could just, we'd had a member that had submitted a question, and I talked to the membership prior to we coming on the air, but we've gotten another follow up on that, and it was about the Senate Bill 211 and House Bill 479. Would anyone want to comment on those pieces of legislation and where we are on those? I'm not really quite sure. We haven't been tracking those.
I'll talk about Senate Bill 211 because Senate Bill 211 is a bill that passed on Thursday, and Senator Danny Carroll is who carried that bill. He is a former law enforcement officer from Paducah, and the legislation was a big piece of legislation. And I know the House has still got some work that they're going to have to do on it from some areas, and so, you know, just listening to his conversations and some of the debate and things on the floor, they're not always the easiest things to talk about. But the gist of the matter of this particular piece of legislation was to bring some law and order to any time that there is riots in Kentucky, and basically to promote peaceful protest and not to destroying of businesses and things like that. And I know, you know, this is a chamber group, a lot of small business owners on here. And I feel like that this piece of legislation is another one of those pieces of legislation that's going to kind of go into what we've seen unfold over the last year. And hopefully it's going to provide some protection for some of our law enforcement individuals and our businesses from any type of riots that might cause any damage to them going forward. And so, you know, it's going to go to the House and probably get several fingerprints put on it over there, but that's kind of the 10,000 foot view of what it does.
Thank you. And then one more follow-up, just please keep us in the loop on what we can do to help with the family court judge. We've had a lot of members reaching out over the past couple of weeks, and we just told them to, you know, we'll wait and see, and we feel good about where we're headed. So thank you all for what you're doing with that, and just know we're here to help in any way we can.
And I'll just say thank you for the support on that, because the road to get a bill to a law is a long and winding one, and your support has been very, very helpful. So appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're not getting into the minutia of how it's done. We just want a second family court judge.